So figurative language, it's a lot of fun to teach. The kids love it. There's so many examples that you can find in the real world. But the real goal is to get them writing with figurative language. And when I do that, I only choose 4 to focus on that I get the most out of from my students. And that's what we're going to talk about today, how to get your students writing with figurative language. Stick around. Hi, I'm Robin Mellum. I'm a children's book author with HarperCollins and Disney Hyperion. I'm also a middle school teacher. I teach writing, and I've put together a writing program that is student-led, that's very much about them, and it teaches them these 6 skills on repeat throughout the year in order to really bring out their best writing. One of those skills is number 5, and we are at figurative language, which I love to teach, and the kids love figurative language as well. There are some types of figurative language, though, that are kind of difficult for them to grasp. There are others that are easier, and I kind of put them into 2 different buckets, like the figurative language that they need to know and identify. And then there's the kind of figurative language that they need to master. And so I separate those out. So when we're doing reading comprehension and things like that, I will bring in to that, figurative language that they need to be able to find, like allusion, things like that, irony. But that's really hard for a 6th grader to write on their own. They're not quite there developmentally. So what they are able to do is, from what I can tell, these 4 different types of figurative language, which is simile, metaphor, hyperbole, and personification. Those are the ones that I teach in my writing class, and I do it on repeat, and you get the most out of them with those in particular. But I do it in a certain way. I have these slides that guide them through it, and I use the gradual release model where we're doing it together, and they're kind of like slowly being let go to then do it on their own, and then to also go and find examples of it in literature. Instead of it being given to them, they have to go out around the room and go find examples of it. So I'm going to show you on my screen exactly how I teach figurative language in my writing program. All right, here are the slides that I use when I'm introducing figurative language to my students. I start off with a sentence or 2 that gives them a non-example and then an example of what it is I'm looking for, and then they try and figure out why I put these 2 sentences up there. So I start out with like a really ordinary sentence. My background is glitching out and I don't have a way to solve that. So disco ball it is. Okay. I start with a boring sentence and then I move on to something more interesting, and I pull one from a novel. So this is from Kate DiCamillo, Because of Winn-Dixie. And then they can start picturing like what it is that we're trying to do with this lesson. And I go through and define the 4 things that they're going to do: similes, metaphors, hyperbole, personification. And each section is kind of set up similarly, like the types of activities that they do. And I don't do this whole slide deck in one session. This sometimes takes me 8 sessions, because each one of these, depending on how your students do with this, it might take them a couple of sessions to get through this. So we look at examples, different ways that you can do similes, and then they start identifying them, which ones are similes. And then I have these things here where they can click and check their answer to see if they were right. Then this is where kind of the gradual release model comes in, where we start with, I give them part of the sentence, and then I'm going to give them a little bit less of a clue, and then a little less, and then a little less. So there's some framing here for them to start to figure out how they're going to do this. Then they move on to writing their own types of similes. Kind of what happens sometimes is we go from definition to now write your own, and we're kind of missing a couple of steps in there. So give them this time to really work on identifying the examples. Why is, some of these sentences, they have the word like or they have the word as in there, but they're not correct. They're not similes. So what makes them correct or incorrect? It's a good conversation you could have with that. And then I pull out an excerpt from a novel. This is from Edward Tulane. I love Kate DiCamillo. And they have to read through, this is a fantastic paragraph, and they have to find the simile in there and then try and explain why. How do they know it's a simile? Again, they can check their answer. And then after that, that's when I have them go grab a novel in the classroom, anything nearby, and start flipping through and looking for similes. They type them in. You could also print this out. And they also include the title. You could do some cool like activities with this where everybody finds their own. They pick their favorite one within a group. That group picks their favorite one, and then you could do some brackets. And you could vote on your favorite piece of figurative language or simile in the novels that are in your classroom. So anytime you can use a bracket in voting, I love it. After that, then I move into metaphors. Now that whole set there, those slides, it might take me 2 sessions to get through those because I really want to give them that time to get into it and share out and talk about it and explain it. So I do the same thing where we're practicing it, gradual release model. They're writing their own. They're finding it this time in The Lightning Thief. There's a great metaphor in that one. And then they're going to go and find some in books. Now, let me say something about metaphors. They're pretty difficult, actually. And even for adults, they're hard to write. You don't come by a really good metaphor all that often. And so to just pick up a book and find a metaphor would be pretty difficult. So I did put a line in here that I'll sometimes have my students just Google the phrase metaphors in middle grade novels, and then they read through the list and they can pick their favorite one and include the title there. Then that way you're not spending like 3 days trying to find a metaphor inside of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, because they would do that. So we move on to hyperbole, examples, finding it, gradual release, write their own, and then there's hyperbole in Percy Jackson here. And then finally, the fourth one is personification, identify, gradual release, write it, find it, and find it in real life. This one is from Edward Tulane. They have some personification there, obviously, because he's a bunny. But this one's an interesting one that's in that sample there. And then finally, I give them some time to start doing a combination of 2. See if you could do 2. So I give them a topic. Can you do one simile and then, something else? Some of them try to get all 4 in there. It's really kind of hard to do, but at least if they can try and get 2 into a paragraph, that would be amazing. And that is probably like 8 sessions. I mean, that takes a while. So when I'm doing my writer's workshop 2 times a week, it takes a while. So I'll go through those types of figurative language kind of as quickly as I can, because I need to circle back around and get through all those other skills. There's so much to teach them. But by doing it kind of quickly in short bursts, and if you want to know more about my writer's workshop, there'll be links below. And if you'd like this slide deck, you can make your own, or you could grab this one and there'll be a link in the comments down there for you. And this has all the answers at the end of it. You can see over here. And then I did also add in there like a blank one if you want to make some Google slides and add in your own topics, or print out a black and white version of that if you want to just do it handwritten as well. So this is number 5 in my 6 skills that I teach on repeat. The next and final one will be show, don't tell. So come back for that one. If you haven't listened to my other ones, go back and find the one where I talk about the 6 skills, why I do those. And then I have a video for each one of those skills to go back. So I hope that helped. Thanks for watching.